Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is that Deno 1.0 was just released, and that's awesome. I've been waiting for Deno's 1.0 release for a while, and now it's out. If you haven't been following Deno, what it is it's by the creators of Node. So if you notice, like, Deno is just Node jumbled, and it's a new JavaScript runtime that offers a couple of new features. It's basically, if all the things that existed now existed when they created Node, this is probably what they would have done. Okay, so think when like Node was created, things like ES6 imports didn't exist yet, TypeScript didn't exist yet. So this gives like first-class support to all those more modern things. It's also more secure because basically things like your file system, internet protocol access, all this stuff is kind of like disabled by default. So you enable it as you need it. So this way you don't have like scripts that have access to your file server run and access your files when you don't want them to. And first-class TypeScript support in the sense that you could actually just run TypeScript files instead of like in Node where you have TypeScript installed and it compiles the TypeScript to JS and then runs the JS. It actually runs the TypeScript. This is very cool. So I was just doing a practice project using sort of one of the early frameworks for Deno for a backend, which is called Oak. There's a couple other ones. I think there's another one called ABC. I haven't really had much time to play with it, but I just wanted to kind of do a project. So I did a little mini project. Now I want to do another one and have you guys kind of watch, where we're going to basically just make a very basic server, and with that basic server we are going to create a really basic React application for the front end. So I'm going to create a new folder. Oh, no, not in there. Okay, I'm going to create a new folder here. Okay. Now, this is going to be called Project 2 because it's my second one. Okay. And in this Project 2 folder, we're going to create a new file, server.ts, to show you that, hey, it's TypeScript. Okay. Now, the first thing we have to do, so I'm going to just use the example one that I was doing earlier. Okay, first thing we have to do is bring in our imports. Okay, so now in Deno, it's not like Node where you have to use required to bring stuff in. It actually uses ES6 imports out of the gate. So there is no need for like a central repository like npm, the Node package manager. You could just basically you could just use any URL and point to what you want to import. And what Deno's going to do is that the first time you import a particular URL, it actually caches it into like a global collection of all these libraries. So that way it doesn't have to keep like re-downloading it for each individual project like in Node. And you don't have to have like a Node modules folder because again the imports have all the URLs, so if you were to run it on another computer it would just download all that stuff, which is pretty cool. Okay, so it makes it where you don't have to like write a .gitignore saying Node modules. You can just have your imports. And you probably are familiar with ES6 import syntax if you've worked with like Webpack and Babel. And set up like environments like with like Create React App and whatnot, where you could use ES6 import syntax. So in here, I'm going to import three things from the library, the Oak library. I want to import their application object or constructor, which allows you to create an application object, which is going to be used for configuring our middleware. A router object, so we can do routes. And then this send function, which is going to be used to configure our static server or folder. Okay, so first thing I want to do is just create some globals. Okay, so create our app and router object. So const app equals new application, const router equals new router. So that's created. Here we're going to have our routes. We'll get to that later on. Here I want to make sure I have my code to serve static files from public folder. Okay, let me just copy that code over from here and just kind of walk you through what it does. And that's another cool thing about Deno. Okay, so Deno's a completely separate runtime. So you're not using Node in this situation. You're using Deno. Deno just literally releases 1.0, so this is new cutting edge JavaScript stuff or TypeScript stuff. So in that case, I have app.use. So this looks very familiar if you've used Express. So app.use is how we configure our middleware. We use an asynchronous function. Cool. Okay, and then instead of like, if you've used Express, you always have like this callback with request and response. Here, everything is in a context object. So everything is in one thing and wrapped in there. So in this case, we're going to use that send function that we brought in at the top. And what this does, it says, okay, we're going to send the context object, which is the object with all the information about the request and response. We're going to send it the end of the URL path, so like the actual path, like the /8 whatever. Send the path, and we're going to say, hey, look for a file in the current working directory. So Deno has a way to get to the current working directory /public. Look in this folder. So I'm going to create a folder called public. So let me do that. New folder, public. And then the index for that folder would be a file called index.html. So the default is to look for a file called index.html. And then that's that. So that serves static files. Next, we just have to do our listener. So this is the thing that actually queues up the server for it to listen. So this is going to be app.listen, and I think I have to do await. Let me just double. And that's a cool thing about Deno. It actually has first class async or top level await. So in that case, it's always asynchronous. So back in Node and in the browser, basically, it's not top level async. In this meaning that for you to use the async await syntax, you would have to create a function that's labeled async, kind of like I did over here. And then you can use await in that function. But here it always assumes that you're in sort of asynchronous mode. So you can always use the await keyword if you want to not lock up your code. Okay? And see, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do app.listen. App.listen. And then here we have to pass in an object with certain options. I'm just going to say port. Actually, I'm going to use port 3000. Okay? Save. So let's just walk through this code again. We imported the library. We created some new objects. We haven't done the routes yet. We created our static file server. And we have our listener. Cool. Now I can run the code. So I'm going to cd up into the project folder. Project 2. Now, so instead of typing Node like I would do if I was using Node, I'm going to type in Deno. And now here's the thing. I'm going to use Deno run because I'm going to run this script. But by default, I don't have access to the internet or to the file system. So if I just run server.ts, and see, I can just run TypeScript files right off the get-go, which is really cool. It's going to give me some errors saying, hey, I can't use the file system and I can't use this. So see, it's compiling because it's the first time it's doing it for this particular project. So let it do that. And there we got some errors. See, uncaught, permission denied, network access. So what you have to do is you have to run it with certain flags. There's a bunch of different ones depending on what you're trying to give permission to. So that's why they say it's secure, because by default it doesn't have access to these things. So you have to intentionally, you have to kind of go out of your way to say, hey, you can play with my file system. You can play with my internet protocol stuff. So Deno run allow net, because we wanted to be able to actually create the listener and listen for IP requests or internet requests or HTTP requests, just to be specific. And then allow read, which means it can read files, not necessarily write files. That would be a separate flag, because all I'm asking it to do is actually read the files that are in my public folder. And then server.jas.ts. Okay, and then that's going to do its thing. And I think it's working. Okay, so the thing is, like, right now I don't have like a callback, because this doesn't by default have like a callback I can pass into to run and leave a little message afterwards. There's a way to do it, but I have to figure that out. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go over here, localhost 3000. Again, we haven't made any routes or made any files, so I'm just going to get like a oops. But just to show you the server is running. See, it is running. No such file or directory. So that means it's working. So let's go into our public folder for project 2. And let's start making our index file. So new file, index.html. Now this is going to be using React, so let me just first put my HTML boilerplate. HTML5. Okay, let's go bring in our React CDN. Okay. So that means first I have to get these right here. So let me grab this. Actually, I want the production one. It really doesn't matter. I'll take the development one. Why not? So we got these script tags. I'm going to add defer to each of these tags, just out of habit. Then we also need Babel, because it's just React has to be compiled through Babel. So let's get the Babel CDN. So I copy that over from over here. Copy. I'll take the full Babel. Copy script tag. Okay. So this is all just standard HTML setup for React. Defer, and then set up our own script tag. I will just keep the file in the same file. So we'll just say script source app.js. And then we need to have like a type thing, so that way it does Babel. So text/Babel. Okay, and defer. Cool. So there we go. Let me just save this file so that way it just lines everything up nice. Okay, so there I brought in React DOM for all my React code. I brought in Babel to translate all my JSX into normal JavaScript, and then here's my file. I label it that it's going to be compiled by Babel. Cool. And then the only other piece I need is just to have your traditional div with the ID of app. And there you go. There's that. Now I just need to create the app.js file here so that we can read that. And then here, we don't need to do any imports because this is just front end. We brought it in through the script tags. So basically, I just need to create my app component. So const app equals props. Okay. And then we're just going to return, for now, h1 hello world, because we just want to make sure this is working before we get too far down the rabbit hole. Hello world. Then I need to do my React DOM thing here. So it's React DOM dot render, and we're going to render the app component where document dot query selector, where there is, actually I'll just use get element by ID. Get element by ID. The element with the ID of app. Okay. Let's see here. Sex implicitly has a type any because no interface exists. That should be fine. Fine document, do you need to change your target library? Okay, I think that should all be fine if we bring it up in the front end. So, okay, so we got the index.html, the server's running. So let's go back over here. This should now load up that file. And there we go, hello world, good. So it's working. Cool. So our React app is functioning. So first we need to actually create the data and the endpoints and all that stuff. So let's go back to our server.js. So again, think of app.js as our front end code, server.js as our back end code. All working out of Deno. Very nice. Okay, and next we're going to start creating routes, except this is in my other file. So let me close this server.js. I want to use server TS because that's the one I have in project 2. Okay, so let's create our routes. And here you would just do router dot get. Well, actually it's lowercase now. Router dot get, and this is going to be /API. Let's actually create some sample data for it to send back. So const persons equals an array, and in that array we're going to have one object to start off with, just to kind of show that this works. A name, Alex, age 34. Okay, then our callback. So if you've done Express before, this should look familiar. It's actually probably more similar to Koa if you've done Koa, because Koa does the whole same sort of text context setup. Koa was made by the same people who did Express, so that's why Koa feels like Express. And then this was based on Koa, so this is why this feels like Koa. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that the way this works is we want to send back persons. So it's context dot response dot body, which is going to equal the persons array. Okay, save. We're gonna have to restart the server in a moment. Okay, but we'll come back to that. I'm gonna get rid of the semicolon for the moment, because then I also want to post a route to /API. Okay, and the one thing I realized is that I need to figure out how to create a JSON parser in Oak, but we'll come back to that. /API context. And we'll come back to the post route. Okay. Let's close the server. Control C. Rerun the server so that way we have access to the get route, and we'll test the get route. Okay, yep, and that's running. Again, there's no response to that. So we're going to do localhost 3000. 3000 /API. I just want to make sure this endpoint works. Okay, it did not. So let's think about that. /get /API. OS error 2 as context at response. Make sure I set this upright. Const router context. Let's go take a look at the docs. Okay. Here's a get context dot response dot body equals hello world dot context dot body array from books. Yep, that's what I did. Status response dot body. Okay, that's if it's not found. Boop 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 boo. Facebook. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. It's a particular problem. Yeah, I didn't type my data and whatnot, but it shouldn't be causing the issue, nor am I seeing an error for it. But let's just try this. Context. Hello world. Save. Okay. Hit Control C. Run the server TS again. Okay, now the server doesn't even seem to be running. Context that server. Yep, still accessing our React application. When we access our API endpoint, I get that. So let me pause this. I'll be right back. Here's the answer. So here we actually have to configure in our middleware to use the router. Let me get to over here. So in that case, let's go back to where I did the static files. I'm going to put that before here. Okay, so essentially here we have a middleware saying, okay, use the routes. And this is just kind of allowing the different types of methods, get, post, etc. So save. Let's restart the server. Control C. Okay, let's see here. Let's refresh. Oh, it's still restarting the server. So let's go back to the index route. That's probably the best way to make sure that the server's up and running. It's still starting up. There it goes. Okay, let's go /API. Hello world. Good. Okay, it's working now. So let's switch that over to. This would be a good time for Nodamon. But again, this is all new. This is all pretty new, cutting edge stuff. So we're all exploring. Now what I want to do is change this back to persons. Save. And I need to restart the server. Control C. That's going to take a second. So I don't know if we'll be able to do the create route right now because I have to figure out how to set up all the JSON parser and all that stuff. But we will still at least populate the page. Let me just make sure that this API, at least the get route, is working. Perfect. Okay, good. We are getting the data. So with that, then we can go back to our React app. Okay, so let's go back to public. Let's go back to our app.js. Okay, and what I need to do is create a piece of state. So const, we're going to say persons, set persons equals react.useState. So I'm using React hooks for state. And it's going to basically equal an empty array to begin with. Okay, react.useState. Save. Okay. Then we need to make the API request. So that's going to be const. Actually, it's going to be react.use. What happened there? There we go. React.useEffect. Okay, and then here we pass in a callback. This is what we want to happen when the component loads. And then again, there's a second argument that is just all the dependencies. I don't want this repeating over and over again. Okay. There we go. Okay, and basically what I want to do is do a fetch. I just want to do a fetch of /API. And then when that resolves, okay, we'll get the response. And then we're going to get response.json. And then we're going to chain off of that. Then take that JSON. Okay. And then we're going to use the set persons function to set the state to JSON, which should be the array of objects. Okay. Cool. Save that. And then all I need to do now is just iterate that. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to make this a div now. A div. And inside that div is going to be a UL. And in that UL, we are going to take our data persons and map it. Dot map value. It's going to just be return an li, and inside the li will just be value.name. Value.age. Okay, so essentially if there was more than one person, it would create a li for each person. Okay, save. Cool, I think that should all be in working order. So let's head back over here. Let's go back to the root route so it loads the, so it serves that index.html. And it works. See, there we go. So we're pulling from the API. So we have essentially a single page application. And the next few steps would just be to create, you know, the other CRUD operations. The only thing I would need to now learn from Oak to do those next steps, I'd have to first figure out the JSON parser. So that way, when we submit form data, when we make a post request, that it can parse the JSON data, and then we could essentially build all the other routes. But yeah, we've used Deno, no node, okay, and we're able to create a React application straight out of this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. There are, again, a lot of other libraries coming out with Deno, and more by the day. So it's a very cutting edge platform. But this goes to show you that it works. And again, I did that as that server file is a TypeScript file. Okay, so I'm able to run my server directly from a TypeScript file. Very nice. Okay, first class support for all this cool stuff. Yeah, that's it. Just wanted to show you guys that. See you later.